Hi,
Hello, hello.
how are you?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Let me let in everyone know. I'm gonna make you host, Matt. Matt tonight is one of our underwriters. Hope everyone's doing great. Um, Matthew will be presenting tonight. I'm making you host. Matthew, you're gonna have to let the people in um, as they come. How are we, Barbie? Matthew, great to see you. Chris, Lynette, see Lay, Sarah, Rod. Yeah, you don't have to let all the note takers, but it's fine. Tim, Todd, everyone's having a great night. We're gonna be covering the some new faces and old faces. Matthew, if you wanna refresh and introduce yourself to everyone.
Yes, absolutely. I know the light's shining in my face a little bit. Apologies for that. All right.
Glad you could all make it. And then I'm just sending we'll wait a few more minutes before we get started. But yeah, if you want to start with what we're going to cover today, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. More than happy to. So I'll get started. Thank you all for being here so much. I'm one of the underwriters here at Generational Wealth, and I've been working with the company about 7, coming on 8 months now, and love working for them. Before that, I still am full-time investor, full-time realtor, working with buyers and sellers, and also purchasing my own investment property. I know a lot of you already know that, but just the new people here, just giving some brief background. Did quite a bit of flips, have rental property. I'm located in Florida, by the way, in South Florida, over in Palm Beach Gardens, which is about 2 hours north of Miami. So that's where I've been for about 17 years now. I have a good understanding of the market over here. And in addition to investing and being a realtor, I also work for banks doing broker price opinions. So I have a good idea in terms of valuations for properties, working with banks and specifically what they're looking for. And that really helps with underwriting your guys' properties as well. And what else? What else? That's about it. I love real estate. This is what I do all day, every day, aside from spending time with family. And I've made it my mission to learn everything I possibly can about investing in real estate, just being in real estate. I'm just fascinated by it. So I love what I do and have a passion for it. And obviously, a lot of the clients that I work with in this group can see that just based upon my efforts of working with them on properties. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into an interesting topic here today. And then towards the end, if we have time, I'm going to try and underwrite some properties because I know you guys really like seeing that. I like to try to provide as much value as possible when I'm on these calls. I don't always like to underwrite because I feel like other underwriters do that during their time. So I kind of want to switch things up. So again, if we have time in the end, I'll go forward and start underwriting some deals. So
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, and any if anyone has any questions, you can yeah, and don't mind to interrupt us and Matthew, and then any other questions like pertaining to your guys' deals, or whatever the case may be, you can put it directly in the WhatsApp group chat. Um, yeah, if you have any specific questions about your deal or need help with anything, it's yeah, we're available there on WhatsApp for you guys and school. But let's
yep,
continue.
for sure. Can you guys see the screen? Why most flippers?
Yes, we can.
All
Yeah,
right.
if you want to
All
put it
right.
full screen. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, so interesting topic here.
And then Matt, as people come in, you might just have to let them in,
Okay.
just because
Okay.
yeah, I have no way of doing that.
Okay.
You got it.
Will do. All right. Interesting topic here. So why most new flippers get screwed in their first deals? Maybe not the topic everybody likes talking about, but it happens. And obviously, our investors, we work with them to make sure that doesn't happen, bringing in our expertise, our resources, our credibility, whatnot. And that's really the whole mission behind GWP is so you guys don't get into trouble. Because when I started 4 years ago, and we'll get into some of the stories that I went through, but lost a good amount of money. Me and my partner lost a good amount of money just starting out, not really having a head knowledge of what exactly to do. So let me get into it. All right. So um, old time investors, those that have been investing 50 years, or those that are just um, have been through the '08 crash. I can't tell you how many times I've heard these phrases and people trying to turn me away from real estate and investing. And it's just funny. So I wanted to include this in the presentation tonight of how many times I've heard, oh, I've lost my shirt in real estate, or you lose all your money, or remember 2008, what happened in 2008 with the market crash, or they'll say, I've been investing in real estate over 50 years. That's not the way we do things. But all to say is the reality is, and we all know this. I know a lot of you are working with us already. A lot of you already have investment property. More millionaires and more wealth is created through real estate than any other investment strategy, more than stocks, more than bonds, more than really anything. About 90% of millionaire, or not yet, about 90% of millionaires are made actually through real estate. Or the remainder of the 10% have real estate in some form. So um, it's funny when people say that because just the stats show otherwise. And yes, you can lose money. Like I said, we've lost a lot of money in real estate, don't get me wrong. But one of the quotes I love is, does a builder start building a house before calculating the cost? It's a very simple and kind of corny phrase, but that just shows you that, okay, yes, all things are risky. All things being equal, all things are risky, but it's about calculating, having the certain knowledge, having the certain expertise, calculating the data, because everything is trackable, right? Everything is trackable. And of course, there's still risk in everything involved, but everything there's data to, everything there's logical solutions to. So that's why I say that yes, you can lose money, but it's very, very, very can be very difficult actually if you're very calculating, if you're scrutinizing, and you're smart with how you play the game. Because real estate's very cyclical as it is. So just that's just what I've learned over the years. And so like all things, time fashions knowledge, knowledge fashions experience, and experience fashions success. So just being in it, even if you buy wrong, within 10 years, you're going to make money on the house because guess what? Appreciation is taking effect. So all things being equal, I just wanted to share that with you. And this is an interesting concept as well. I don't want to get too much into this. I know I've spoken about this before, but three main things that people can leverage when just getting started with any industry, any profession, any job is going to be these three things. It's going to be hustle, money, and time. And I find that time is also relative to knowledge. If you have a lot of time, you may be building up a lot of knowledge as well. So I relate time to knowledge. And the idea with this triangle here is to leverage one of the two. So you may have one, and then the idea is to leverage the two. So for example, a lot of the clients that we work with in generational wealth plan have the money, but they may not have the hustle and they may not have the time. So they leverage that by bringing us, which is essentially a mentor, to help them buy investment properties, utilize our resources, utilize our time that we spend towards your guys' deals. And I apologize for the noise. I'm with my dog right now, guys. It's embarrassing. Can you sit? Lay down. So sorry for that, guys. Wife is out tonight and I'm stuck watching the dog. So if you guys hear noise in the background, apologize. Where was I? Okay, so leveraging one of these three things. Same thing with hustle. You may have the time, like I do right now, being in real estate. I have a lot of hustle right now, and I'm still young, and I had a lot of time to contribute towards um, generating money and time. So all this to say, you buy a flip without proper support and knowledge because you hear everybody else making millions. I apologize, guys. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. All right. All right, I'm gonna share two stories super quickly about just two investments that I have. This is true stories. These are two investments that I had. So like I said, I'm over in Florida. So I had a townhouse in what Delray. Sorry, yeah, this is in Delray Beach. We purchased this townhome. It's kind of like a duplex style, with each side um, having separate ownership. And first mistake we did was we bought it too high, right? I think this is one of our first deals that we ever purchased, and we bought it too high. We got really excited, felt like the numbers made sense. We went in, just bought it way too high. Second thing is it's a 55 plus community. Now, majority of residents in Florida are going to be over the age of 55, but that cuts out a lot of your demographic as well. A lot of your buying pool is not going to be 55 plus. So plus 55 plus communities, usually you can't bring in kids. There are restrictions against kids. So that's another percentage cut down. And I'll get into this more in depth in a little bit. I'm just trying to make a point. The other thing is lack of research. Didn't know anything about the area, didn't know about the comps, didn't really know about the market. We just assumed because we lived in Florida, Florida was going like this at the time that, hey, we're just going to buy it and whatever happens, happens. And we just kind of had like pie in the sky visualization of it. So lack of research, contractor complications. We had nothing in writing with our contractor that we found. Never used him in the past for any projects. We just actually heard about this guy and we started working with him. Nothing in writing. We had nothing on timelines, anything like that. Listing complications. I was a realtor at the time, so I was listing my own properties. So not only did I not know what I was doing, but I also had just a lack of experience in terms of sales. When people would come to see the house, I wouldn't really know what to say. Um, I didn't I didn't spend time learning about the market, so I couldn't really talk about what was in the area. Lack of follow-up as well. So ultimately, we didn't know what we didn't know, and that one took a full year to sell. A full year. So we actually lost 30 grand on this one, believe it or not, which is a hard lesson to learn. Here's the second property. We bought this around the same time frame, I believe a couple months later. It's also a townhouse. However, this is in West Palm Beach, which is a growing area. Delray Beach is a growing area, but it's kind of like stabilizing. It wasn't as growing, it wasn't much development coming in as there was in West Palm Beach. We bought it just right. I remember actually showing up on the appointment and making an offer that I like had to bite my tongue on, and it was really low, and the guy got mad, walked away, and my partner ended up calling and following up with him and explained a little bit more why we needed that price, ended up locking in the deal. So we're super excited with that. This one had no HDR restrictions. I think the monthly dues was about $200. And by the way, those for you who don't know what HOA is, it's just a homeowners association. And usually it's within gated townhome condo communities where there's a board of directors and they're the governing party in terms of what's allowed in the community. They kind of set the rules. They're like the government in these little communities. Uh, we also set deadlines. We found a different contractor this time, set deadlines, expectations. We budgeted with the contractor all in writing. My mother is an attorney and she drilled in me ever since I was young, get it in writing, get it in writing, get it in writing. So we got it in writing with this contractor. We had a listing strategy in place. I still listed it, but I had a strategy. This one sold in 9 days. Same, mostly everything the same, except the different things that I'm going to now be talking about. So the first reason people fail, obviously, is overbuying. People say time and time again, you make money on the buy. It's very, very, very important because you can change the other factors such as renovation and the type of finishes and how much money you're putting towards a deal. You can alter the after repair value based upon the type of finishes and how much you spend on the property. Holding costs you can negotiate. So there's a lot of things you can adjust. On the buy, you cannot change. So that's why we try to aim buying at 70%. When I first started, actually, I would buy at 65%, which is a lot tougher to get deals, but we had to make it happen. And even then, we still made mistakes, but of course. So we bought really deep, and we weren't. And the next thing is overpaying is you're not going to you can't be emotionally tied to it, right? When I first started, I had a limiting belief on deal flow. So I felt like I was always competing for deals. Florida was a really hot market at the time, so I felt like whatever deal I got my hands on, that's the one I wanted. Guys, there are hundreds of deals in there. The phrase goes well, there are more fish. in the sea. There's hundreds of properties out there. There's not a scarcity of properties. So emotionally tied to properties, even if you love it, even if like you see you and your family in it, or even if it's like be the best investment ever in your own mind, cannot be emotionally tied to it. Let the data speak. Overestimate ARVs, which is after repair value, which still can be an emotional tie to it, right? You're pushing that ARV. Well, I could see it. I could see it get up there. It's still an emotional tie. Of course, underestimate repairs. Next thing would be lack of preparation, believing you know more than you do. And by the way, our company, Generational Wealth, we don't just have one underwriter. We have numerous underwriters, and we have people checking our work. We have those people checking other people's work, and we have a big pool of people that work within our community that are constantly checking in our deals. Our lenders are evaluating these properties. We're checking the work from our contractors. Contractors are checking the work from our project managers and etc. So we're all checking each other's work to make sure that there is least amount of resistance and failure as possible. And then buying at future projections. The worst mistake you could do is buy at our future projection. We're starting to open up our grasp and our reach into multifamily, and which is really where we want to end up going is bigger multifamily stuff. And brokers will always sell you all the time on future projections. Well, this is where it could be, but that's not what it is now. So paying for what it's worth now is going to be more important than buying what we believe it could do. Because God forbid something happens down the road and it's not able to get that to that value, or you're not able to raise the rents to that degree. Pay for what you believe it's doing now, and pay for the value of it now. And that's why we buy at 70% because that's what it's worth at the time. Okay, so reason one. Reason two, obviously, it's going to be underestimate renovations costs. And it's going to go back to relying on your own knowledge. When you're relying too much on your knowledge, even if, let's just say, you have construction experience or you built your own house, unless you're a contractor or an inspector, I will say do not rely on your own knowledge. It's impossible to know everything. It's impossible to catch everything. So always lean on somebody. Again, we have our pool in GWP. We all rely on each other, and we all utilize our knowledge because you don't know everything. And then they also don't depend on the comps because let's be honest, when you're calculating renovation budget, it's very speculative about if I put in X, then that means I'm going to get Y, meaning if I put in a quartz countertop, how much more is somebody going to pay for that quartz countertop than if I put in a Formica one? It's almost impossible to tell unless you rely on the comparable data, which is going to be sold comparables. If it's a rental, it's going to be rental comparables as well. Same thing with multifamily. We're looking at multifamily right now. It's going to be multifamily comparables. What do they have the laundry in the units? Do they have um, I don't know. Do they have certain features in those units that where I can generate the same amount of rent? Stuff like that. So rely on the comps heavily, 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 heavily. Takes the guesswork out of it. They don't get a second professional opinion from a contractor or inspector. That's more back to point number one, where you're relying on your own knowledge. We get inspections. We have our contractors go out to the property. We started working with a company called Genstone after working with not a not so good company, and they've been great. They've been going out to every single property, so we get the actual budget about what they're going to charge us for the work. And then they don't add contingencies or buffers, which we'll get into a little bit later. But essentially, those are going to be things like 10% contingencies on your renovation budget, and then buffers will be like the time of like what are you budgeting for holding costs, which again we'll get into a little bit later. Reason three, contractors. Look at this guy. It's a funny photo. But so reason three is they why we lose money is we don't have clear expectations. We don't know their timeline. Everything's up in the air, right? Everything's in the atmosphere, meaning it's all words. Nothing's in writing. There's no timelines, there's no budget, there's no consequences if they're over timeline, there's no bonuses if they're under, which is a great idea to do because it incentivizes them to finish early. Budget, obviously, what's the total scope of work, and if they go over, what's the penalty for that? And obviously, sometimes they're gonna tell us, um, well, we don't know because if we open up a wall and we find something that we don't know, then that's going to be more of a charge. And you kind of have to work with them a little bit. And that's why we do add in that 10-15% contingency, depending on the type of property. But if it's very straightforward in a clear-cut property, we usually want to get a budget. We usually want to hold them to that budget. And then, of course, contracts and writing. Second thing is we don't vet them properly. There are when I was choosing my contractor, and I wish I did these for the first guy I work with on the townhouse in Delray Beach, is I didn't vet them properly and I didn't interview, right? There's a list of questions you can really ask them is how many projects have you done? Who do you usually work with? Is it homeowners? Is it investors? Because those are going to be two different businesses, right? You're either working for a homeowner, you're working for an investor. Homeowners are if a contractor's working for a homeowner, they're usually going to charge a lot more. They're going to buffer a lot more because they're figuring that homeowners are going to be negotiating and they're going to be changing their mind 100 times, right? And with the investors, they're more straightforward, so they may charge a lot less, and they're depending upon you giving them volume, which the contractors we work with over more time of giving them more and more and more deals, you eventually want to talk them down on their pricing because we're giving them a lot of volume, we're giving them a lot of business. And then, of course, call references, referrals, the last two, three, maybe even four people that they've worked for in the past with projects. See the work in person. We always want to see, if possible, see the work in person that they've done in previous projects. Another interesting thing is have them do small jobs first. So instead of giving them a full project and praying that it's going to go well, have them. I had a contractor literally just seal a window of mine or even paint like the siding on the windows at my house before I fully hired him for a job. Or they put in trim or casing on windows. I did that to see their craftsmanship before I fully hired them to do a full-fledged project, and it's going to save you a lot of headache. This is going to be the most important one, is make sure they're licensed, bonded, and insured. Obviously, our company that we work with is. If you guys are using your own contractors, make sure they're licensed, bonded, and insured. Licensed, bonded, and insured. Licensed means they have a license with the DBPR, the city, or the county they work in. Bonded means if by chance they do run off with your money, then these bond companies will pay you all or sometimes a percentage of the money they work, uh, of the money that you ended up paying for them to them, and then they'll go try to find the contractor to get that money back from the contractor. So it's very important to have that when speaking to contractors and insured. Of course, we have our own insurance, but if somebody gets hurt on the job, it's an extra safety precaution to make sure that they're insured as well, and it just saves you a lot of trouble when they are. Okay, trust them with too much too quickly. It's going back to vetting them. Is you're giving them too much up front. Sometimes they can't handle it. If you've never used this contractor before, and they don't finish the job or they did the job haphazardly and they it's not good craftsmanship, then you've trusted them too quickly, right? Just like any relationship, you get to know them first, you date, and then you marry. Same thing with contractors, you have to. Um, Next thing is going to be a lack of a project manager. Now, usually general contractors are considered these project managers. When um, when I was investing in Florida, and I say when because I don't really invest in Florida anymore. Florida's going through a weird market right now, so that's why we do focus upon the Midwest and the Southeast, excluding Florida. When I was investing on my own, I had a project manager who I'm still really good friends with. He comes over to the property in my house and does a lot of work still. Is he was my project manager and he would source out subcontractors. So it's good to have that one guy that you speak to instead of speaking to 10, 15 guys that are subcontracting that are going to be involved in the flooring, the bathroom, the kitchen, the painting, the roof. It just it's just for me it's too much. So project management is a good way to have strategy. It's a good way to have a system. You're speaking to one guy and then they source the contractors and they source the subs. Again, if you're working with the general contractor, that's already done. And then compensation. Paying them too much, flee the country, right? How many times does that happen to people? I can't tell you how many times. The first contractor I worked with, we ended up paying him a good amount of money, and yeah, stuff like that happens. So paying them too much up front, along with them being bonded and insured, or paying them too slow, right? If you're paying them too slow or too quick, I say, uh, if you're paying them too, well, let me go to too slow. If you're paying them too slow, then they're not gonna have an incentive to finish the job on time for you. If you cannot pay them on time, they're gonna be slow to want to get the job done quickly. And I say, or too quick, because if we don't check up on the work, we don't ensure that the work is done, and we pay them, then there's no incentive for them to go back and actually fix the work that's been done. And then I say, I want to go back to paying them too much up front. Paying them too much up front. So usually with the contractor we work in, we pay them in draws and in schedules. So we'll have either four, five, six schedules based upon the phases that are needing to be done in the house, such as kitchen and flooring up front, and just random order. Obviously, you wouldn't do this. Kitchen and flooring up front, and then maybe bathrooms and paint second, and then the roof and the AC third, and then so on and so forth. And you're paying them in draws, not for the full job, not for half the job, in draws and schedules, which is another thing you want in writing. Okay, reason number four. And I hope this is providing some value to you guys as well. I hope you guys are learning something new. All right, reason number four, holding costs and ancillary costs. Um, very, very, very common. It's not, this is not as big of a deal for people because a lot of these costs are relatively smaller than, of course, like buying the whole house at a purchase price, whereas you'd be just paying interest, such as, but it's still important. So I'm going to touch on it here. Underestimate loan costs, lenders' fees, title fees. Uh, we always ask with any lender we work with, what are their loan costs? What are they charging? What is their processing fees, their underwriting fees, of course, what is their interest, and then what is their seasoning period? What is their just all kinds of questions that we usually ask them. And then title fees, sometimes really not as important in hard money loans, but still an important factor because if you're working with an attorney-based title company, they will charge you a good amount if it's in comparison to just a regular standard title company. So it's good to get a list of charges. And I know most of the time we don't really have a choice since the seller chooses, but it's still good to know up front and to budget for down the road. And then miscalculating taxes and insurance. This is a big one, especially if you're holding the property, because guess what? You buy a property who who the seller bought it back in 1999 for $20,000 and their assessment is $50,000 and you're paying and they're paying $500 a year for taxes. Guess what's going to happen when you go to buy that property at $350,000 25 years later? It's going to be reassessed and the taxes are going to jump up tremendously. And it's probably going to go up to three, four, maybe even 5 grand. And you're stuck with paying those taxes that you thought you were paying 500 a year. So make sure that you're figuring out, especially if you're holding these properties. If you're holding these properties, make sure you are uh, calling up the city. If it's us, we'll be calling up the city to ensure where the taxes are going to be once they are reassessed at that purchase price. And it's usually based upon a mileage rate from the county. So it can be very simple to figure out, sometimes not. It's just going to be depending upon the county and the state. Insurance, we always get quotes on insurance, so there's really no question there. They don't budget enough for timeline. Always, we try to budget for a 1 to 2 month buffer. If we feel like a project's going to be 3 to 4 months, we want to add another 1 to 2 month buffer on top of that. And then listing costs. Listing costs. This is important too. So I'm actually, as well as working the acquisition side, I'm also going to be working dispositions for the company, which I'm excited about doing. And I've already spoken to you guys about working on the listing side of your property. And a good factor of your expenses goes towards the sale of the property. About 8 to 10% of your after repair value is going to be taken out by sale costs. And this is just going to be general holding costs, photos, pre-listing inspection, which we're going to start doing on every single property that we work on, is we're going to be sending out an inspector pre-listing to ensure that the property is everything's up to code, everything's done right. There's going to be no surprises that pop up once a buyer comes in. Because guess what? I've had properties where um, crazy. I've had properties where we're selling and we finally find a buyer, right? It's like we're in Florida and the market is not the best right now. And in Florida, it's kind of stabilizing. It's going back up a little bit, but when we bought it, it was kind of going down. And we finally found a buyer. We're so excited. We do the listing inspection and come to find out the house has termites. And of course, buyers who never bought a house in their life leave the inspection, never hear from them again. We lost the buyer. So that's why it's very important. We're going to start doing pre-listing inspections on all these properties because guess what? If they don't walk away, they're going to be asking for ding, 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 seller credits. Seller credits is going to be dependent, how much they can ask for is going to be dependent upon their lender. Sometimes it can be 2% of the purchase price, sometimes it can be 3%. It's going to be just dependent upon their lender. Legally, I believe there's some legalities to it as well, but 2 to 3% is still a good amount. If you're paying 6% commissions, that's another 3% you're paying for seller credits. So if we're not doing a pre-listing inspection, then you better budget for seller credits because they're going to be asking for something. Just keep that in mind. They're going to be negotiating after inspection. Uh, Maintenance costs. So not a huge deal as the others are, but these are just things that we may not consider, like upkeep on the lawn. I know the property that I am in now, when we were renovating this house, the city was on my butt about the lawn because the lawn was overgrown. We were renovating the property. I'm like, I'm not going to pay a landscaper to go out and cut the entire lawn for a couple months that we're holding it. And they got on me. They started charging me a lot. So I needed to upkeep the lawn. I needed maintenance. Utilities is going to be, in my eyes, considered a maintenance cost. Electric, gas, plumbing, or sorry, water. Pool servicing. Again, not a huge deal. Maybe you're paying 120 a month for a pool, but I'm going to tell you a little story about a property that we had over in Stewart, and we're working on the pool. House came with a nice blue, beautiful pool. We're going to renovate the house. It was a gorgeous pool. I didn't pay for pool servicing because I was like, oh, it's an extra cost. I have about 6 months that I'm budgeting for. Maybe it's like 500 to 1,000 for the whole time of sale. I'm not gonna budget for pool servicing. So every Sunday after church, I would go have to scrub the pool because it turned green. And it was just brutal. It was brutal. I knew nothing about pools. So I'm pouring in chemicals, scrubbing. Next Sunday comes, I'm going over and cleaning out the pool again because it turned green. So make sure you're budgeting these if it has a pool, if it has lawn, especially utilities, because that's on every single property. Reason number five, and I think the most important, is market conditions. I was just reading a book by this big private equity guy. I'm sure you guys have heard of him, Ray Dalio, and he was actually very famous for predicting the '08 crash. And I've been looking into a lot of his stuff and how he predicts the market and the seasonalities of the market and going back in history and studying history because history repeats itself. Super interesting guy. I recommend that you guys look into him for just market dynamics and market conditions. And so market conditions are super important. The biggest factor in a real estate market condition is going to be supply and demand. It's going to be the buyer market or the seller market. It's going to be months of inventory. I've spoken about this in other videos of mine. And when it's a seller's market, usually the sellers are in control of the pricing because there are more buyers than there are sellers. Vice versa, a buyer's market is when buyers are in control of the market because there's more sellers than there are buyers. That's supply and demand. And then a good indicator of inventory is going to be the amount of months of inventory. So when a realtor says, oh yeah, there's 5, 6, 7 months of inventory in a market, what does that mean? Well, if let's just pick 6 months, if the inventory at a certain market is 6 months of inventory, that means if there were no more listings ever to be put on the market, all those houses would sell in 6 months. I know it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around but that's just the way they do it. So anywhere from 1 to 3 months of inventory is going to be a seller's market, meaning sellers are predominant and they're going to be in control of the market. Anywhere from what did I say, 4 to 5 months is going to be more of a balanced market, and then about 6 to 10 is going to be more of a buyer's market. And then 11 and 12, that's probably like a crash or a recession where nobody's buying houses. That would be really bad if it got to 11 to 12 months of inventory. I'm sure it's happened before, but I just don't know if that, I've never heard of it happening, but it's bad. Seasonality. The best time to sell a property or rent a property is going to be from March to October, right? I switched them around by accident. March to October because that's when the summer's coming around. A lot of people are moving. A lot of people want to move. A lot of people are moving to rent as well, or their lease is up around that time usually because all leases usually follow the same pattern. Anywhere from March to October is going to be usually your dead season. I mean, not a lot of activities going on in the market. It can, but not a whole lot. Of course, you have the Christmas, you have holidays. So we always try to aim within those months to either sell or to rent. And of course, high crime areas, this can come down to the street. So it doesn't just have to be like a city, such as like Memphis, where there's a lot of crime, but it's also going to come down to the street. I've recommended this site many, many times in this call. Crime Grade is the best website for determining the crime. It's going to give you a classification of a neighborhood based upon A, B, C, D class rating. We usually like to only buy in C areas. If it's a D, that means there's going to be a lot of crime and we don't want to buy there. And then rental market, of course. What are the rents? Can people afford the rents? Usually we want to see a median income of 3 times the rental amount. So for example, if we're charging for rent that's $1,000, we want to see people are getting income of about $3,000 a month. That's usually what we want to see. And if they can't afford that, then you're going to have a problem with that market, with like, trying to think, Cleveland, Ohio, where um, rent rates are very high, but then the affordability is very low. So you have a lot of inventory, but you don't have a whole lot of um, renters, or you have a lot of turnover. It's a big problem. So consider that. Consider income when you're looking in an area. Population growth, of course, job growth, very important factors. And then this isn't really a market condition, but we always try to consider 2 exit strategies if things go south. If it can't sell, you're going to turn it into a rental. If it can't rent, maybe we list it as a subject to or a seller finance or even a lease back. There are different strategies that we like to implement. All right. So the last slide I have here, in what time is it right now? 7:42. If you guys want me to go into an underwriting, I'm more than happy to do so. Preventive measures. And you see this guy wearing a mask. right? Preventive measures. So just going through all five that I went through, these are going to be the best things to remedy those situations. So partner up with knowledge. You guys are doing that with joining our group. Great. The best thing you could do is that. If I didn't when we first started, we actually joined Homevestors, which is one of the biggest cash buying company franchises there are. And that exponentially impacted our growth, our development like no other. We'd be probably back and still doing primitive stuff if we didn't have someone holding our hand and teaching us along the way. So we partnered with knowledge. We had the hustle, we had the money, but we partnered with knowledge to help us provide them value, hustle, time, money. If you don't have the money, then provide whomever with value, other investors, realtors, try to work for them for free, try to do things for them, et cetera, et cetera, if you have the time and you have the hustle, but doesn't need to be spoken of here. Start small and conservative. I started with condos. Obviously, condos are not in the best shape right now. Single family homes are more in demand, so maybe not as consistent now, but that's just where I started with condos. Start buying at 65%, then 70%, then 75%. We buy a little bit less of 70% minus repairs, 70% minus ARV. So we're still in that cushion, which is good, but we would definitely want to aim for 70%. That because that leaves room for errors as well. But when I started, as I mentioned to you guys, I would buy at 65% of ARV if you are doing a flip. This is not considering a rental, which you can, but then I'm assuming you're putting in a lot of money to this rental, and that's probably not the best way you want to go about it unless you're refinancing. And then ask friends or other investors in your circle for referrals. That's what I did. I actually went to a networking meeting, and that's where I found my project manager. I met the best contractor, best project manager I ever met. It was a networking meeting, meeting friends, other investors in your circle. Ask for referrals, and because they've usually have vetted them already. Realtors usually have vetted them or used them in the past, so they'll refer their best people. I said this before, buying areas with growing population, job growth, low crime, obviously. Um, this is what we do for every single property. We get an inspection, we get a contractor quote, we do multiple comparable analyses, and this is before signing the contract. Before we sign a contract, we gather all this information to make sure it's a good deal, and then we present it to you guys. And we're only presenting the data that we have, and that's the data that we share with you guys. And then, of course, coming from a mother who is an attorney, we get everything in writing, everything in writing, everything in writing. Super important that you're doing that, even if you guys use your own contractors or your own team. Make sure it's all in writing because writing doesn't lie. Um, I said this before, use contractors that are licensed, bonded, and insured only. And then back to buffer and contingencies. 10 to 15% contingency in every deal. If there's some things questionable, I'll bump it up to 15%. I've done that on a couple deals with you guys. And then 5 to 6 month buffer. If we're aiming for 3 to 4 months completion, we want to bump that up to 5 to 6, so there is some buffer room in there. And the last thing is going to be data driven, emotionless decisions only. If you're speculating, can you back it up with data? Yes, no. It's a yes or no answer. Can you back it up with data? Okay, that's it. And I think I covered everything here. So yeah, that's it. These are gonna be the best ways I'm making money in this business. Just the years of experience that I have and just learning about everything, going through fire and making a lot of money in real estate. This is gonna be the best couple things that you could do to ensure that you are successful. Okay. Wrapping it up, there's this good looking stud right here. You guys are free to email me. I have an Instagram, Facebook. I don't really like social media that much. But if you want to schedule a call with me to go over a deal you're looking at, feel free to do so. I'm more than happy to do that. And then how much time we have left? Okay, we have a little bit of time. If you guys want me to go over a deal, I'm more than happy to do so. If not, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Other than that, I am done. Oh, come on. Everyone's not sleeping, are they? You guys fell asleep on me?
What's up, Matthew?
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Good. How about
Well,
you?
good, good, good. Hi.
Hello.
Well, hi, Luca.
What was that?
Luca, my son wanted to say hi.
Hi, Luca.
There you go.
How are you?
I had a question about, sorry, about the last week's call. You guys said something about a castle, and I haven't had a chance to redo the video again. But what did I get it correct that if you put 50 in, that it's kind of like a PML deal where you get 30K back if you partner with you guys? Can we just go over that a little bit more?
I wish I could. I don't know too much about that deal, to be honest. That's Adrian's deal. I don't know too much about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would speak to Adrian or Jose about that. I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't even know where the first place to start with that one.
Not a problem. I'll go and reach out to him.
Yeah, reach out to them. All right, gang. Well, that's it from me.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Lilia.
Thank you, Matthew.
No problem, Frank.